Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to episode 27 of the ESG show. Today's theme is digital transformation and sustainability. Now, what is an ethical company? The boss of the European arm of Fujitsu recently appeared before British Parliament when he was asked whether the firm was an ethical company. He appeared to suggest that in the past, the company failed to live up to its standards. Now, critics of ESG say all this concern about companies being ethical is woke capitalism, but I believe being ethical correlates to long-term profitability. The UK is being rocked by a scandal in which 900 plus managers of local post offices were wrongly prosecuted for theft and false accounting, when in fact the problem was software sold by Fujitsu. The company subsequently presented evidence which led to erroneous convictions. The company is now suffering from an enormous reputational damage, and it will surely be forced to pay out substantial compensation. I would argue that this is evidence that past failures to behave ethically are likely to cost the company far more than it saved in the first place by its failure of transparency and governance. And this is just another example of why being ethical and having rigorous governance is not woke capitalism, it's simply good business. Anyway, let's move on. I wanted to tell you about a survey we conducted. We asked, what do you think is the most important digital practice to ensure ESG sustainability through organizations? And we had two winners with 33% votes each: supply chain visibility and remote working options, with carbon waste tracking coming a respectable third with 21% of the votes. We had a couple of comments. Miranda Kennedy said, I would suggest something simple with immediate measurable results like reducing carbon emissions per load on our websites. And Dawn Rennick, she said all of the above, all of the questions, all the options, she thought they were all good options. Anyhow, I think it is time that we met the guests. And on the show today, we have Manuel. Hello, Manuel. How are you today?
Hello, Michael, and thank you for hosting us at the show. Doing great.
It's a pleasure. And whereabouts are you today? Whereabouts in the world are you?
Oh, I'm in Mexico City right now. I live in Dallas. So I'm Central Time Zone. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning, bright and early. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, we got you up an hour ago. So we're putting you through the paces this morning. So anyway, Manuel Vexler, he is a seasonal technology and business leader. He's a seasonal technology business leader with a strong background in sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation. Currently, he serves as the executive director of AKFI, an industry member association, and is an instructor at Cornell University, imparting his expertise to the next generation of leaders. He's also, together with Isabella, who's also on the show today, the co-host of Actionable ESG, a weekly broadcast on the Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute on current challenges in global sustainability and ESG. Mr. Vexler has held high-level positions at Huawei, Cisco Systems, and AMD, garnering awards for his exceptional executive training delivery and successful management of telecom products and services. He holds various certifications from Cornell University, University of Toronto, and Queen's University, complementing his Masters of Science degree in Biomedical Electronic Engineering. With a new blend of technical and business acumen, Mr. Vexler is a sought-after mentor for those aspiring to excel in the industry. So, Manuel, what is AKFI?
Well, the simplest way to explain AKFI, it's an industry association where companies can reach consensus over ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation standardization and best practices. We look at actionable, we look at the output, it's action, not papers.
Okay, and what was it that made you decide to move from digital transformation to sustainability? Or did you not? Are the two things so closely linked there's not really a move at all?
There are closely linked, of course, and the close link comes from the word transformation. We actually say at AKFI is transformation digital. The transformation is the ongoing process, that fuels actually the move of enterprises to become more profitable, to become more ethical, as you mentioned already, to become to support the stakeholders, not only the shareholders. So transformation links actually digital with sustainability and ESG.
Okay, thank you for that, Manuel. Well, Manuel, you join us again in a few minutes, if that's okay. I was hoping to have a chat with Isabella, but she's not here at the moment. So, oh, hello, Isabella. You've arrived. How are you today? And whereabouts in the world are you this morning?
Hi, Michael. Good to see you again. I'm here in Beijing, China.
Okay, so we've got Mexico City and Beijing, China. So, and I'm in the south coast of England. So I think we're doing quite well. I think we're covering a fair percentage of the world. So Isabella Wang is an impact entrepreneur with a deep passion for creating a positive impact in today's fast-paced digital landscape. She is the founder of Digital Thinker, a purpose-led startup on a mission to elevate humanity through impact innovation centered on responsible AI, digital well-being, sustainability, and co-creation economy. As a recognized thought leader in social innovation, sustainable development, future studies, Isabella's mission is to humanize the world by leveraging technology and innovation for the greater good. Her best-selling book, which I'm going to show you in just a second, her best-selling book, The Digital Mind of Tomorrow, offers a thought-provoking exploration of the intersection of technology and society. Okay, and Isabel contributes numerous articles on digital innovation, ethical technology, impact investing, conscious capitalism, and related topics. Her insights have made her a featured speaker at leading international conferences where she shares her ideas on emerging technologies and their potential impact on society and business. So she speaks at leading international conferences, but what can be a more leading conference than the ESG show? Don't you think, Isabella? Okay, so Isabella, you co-host Actionable ESG with Manuel. Can you tell me what's that all about?
Yes, sure. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm very glad to be part of the Actionable ESG Talk series as well. As you just introduced, Manuel and I co-hosted, and Manuel did a fantastic job bringing a long list of influential thinkers, including White House advisor, Professor Eric Berger, World Health Organization Program Director, Professor Derek Yak, and Microsoft Chief Scientist in Israel, Dr. Tomer Simon, and many, many more. The goal is to together discuss on the current state and the future state of the intersection of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation.
Okay, thank you for that. Tell us, as you're speaking from Beijing right now, I don't think you're always based in China, are you? I think you work from the United States as well, if I remember correctly. But what's the sort of the ESG? Can you give us a sort of an ESG perspective? A Chinese perspective on ESG. What's the state of ESG in China right now, do you think?
Yeah, I've spent quite a lot of time this year, almost the whole year in China in 2023. It was quite a big year for ESG in China this year. There were guidelines and mandatory sustainable reportings for especially listed companies, regulations. And China has this 14th five-year plan reaffirmed the commitment to achieving the carbon neutrality by 2060. There's a growing need from the investors in the ESG-focused sustainable investment opportunity in China as well. And the discussion around the ESG sustainability, it's very active both domestically and globally. For example, Shanghai holds the 2023 ESG Global Leaders Conference, which I'm very interested in because they focused on building a resilient and inclusive future through responsible investment and innovation. And also there are big financial companies collaborate with United Nations to address the positive impact of ESG on development and also the need of quality development within ESG itself.
Okay, thanks for that, Isabella. All right, well, if you could join us again in a few minutes, I'll say goodbye to you now, and I'll say hello to you again in a couple of minutes' time. We've got some. We're already getting quite a broad range of people watching the show today. Miranda Kennedy from Dallas in Texas. Ellen Williams, a former guest on the show from New York City. Joanna Thurlow from the Isle of Man. And Andrew Barnes from Falkirk in Scotland. So that's a nice broad selection of people. And also joining us on the show today from Scotland is Scott Seivwright. And excuse me while I call him up. Hello, Scott.
Here we go. Hello.
And how are you? And whereabouts are you today? I know you're in Scotland. Whereabouts in Scotland?
Yeah, I'm just in the middle of Scotland, so in the heartlands, so between Glasgow and Edinburgh. Although mentally, I spent a month in Mexico City, so I'm still in the mental time zone with Manuel.
All right, we seem to have a Mexico bias this morning. Tell me, is Falkirk north of where you are?
It's west.
Right, so you're probably the northernmost.
Yeah, I think
watching the show today. Or on
yes.
The show today.
Yeah, slightly. Yeah.
Okay. So Scott is the co-founder of Green PO. With over 30 years in the business world, Scott has built a reputation as a strategic leader, driving sustainable growth in large organizations through roles such as interim CTO and enterprise agile coach. His commitment to sustainability and ethical business practices aligns with the 5 Ps of the Sustainable Development Goals, reflected in his global network of like-minded associates. Scott's distinct optimism sets him apart. He believes in the transformative power of innovation for a more prosperous and sustainable future. As a leader at 3B ESG and being beyond better, Scott is not just about business success, he's about pioneering a hopeful future. His strategic planning and commitment to positive change are not only driving growth and profitability, but also fostering a culture of sustainability and ethical responsibility. So, Scott, what has agility got to do with ESG?
Yeah, so I've been doing agility for many, many years, and prior to agility, doing lean, and I've been part of that movement that's grown up. What agility is really about, and when they came up with the term agility, they had 2 terms and they voted on it, and one was adaptive and one was agility. So it's the ability to move quickly, it's ability to make decisions quickly, it's ability to focus in on your customers, and at the same time the ability to adapt. Never in the time of kind of human history have we needed to adapt as quickly as we are now and adapt globally. So I think the skills that we've got in the sense of delivering and responding and bringing people together that are part of the agile movement are really what's needed to drive the impacts that ESG will have. And that's why I think it's important, because it's a lot to do with the how, but it's also a lot to do with getting it right first time and doing the right thing. So this is what we sign up to with agility.
Okay, thanks for that. Now you've also founded Green PO. What's that about?
Okay, so product owners are a key bit in all the agile movement, but they're also quite a common term now through any of the digital development or digital transformation. And these are the people that are work with teams, make decisions, interpret what stakeholders want and value. And one of the things that we've found is that the lots of people around there making all the decisions around about products, and they're not connected with strategy. So an organization will have a policy strategy decision to I don't know, have 20, 30 guidelines, and they might do things like train everyone in the organization around about the carbon footprint. But when it actually comes to individual product owners deciding what gets built into the digital products or into the physical products, there's no green guidance at the moment. So what we wanted to do was build an organization. So the framework will be free to everyone. And I've been working with Patrick, who came from Bosch and their circularity program and their small electricals, and Joanna, who's a developer, agile coach, who's got very much a strong sense of what we need to do around about having green technology. And we're building these elements up and training up to try and help make those decisions at the point where money is being spent and the decisions are getting made, and trying to connect strategy to actual product development. And this backs very much with what Unilever's statements were in November, when they said they were kind of less focusing on policy, less focusing on strategy, and more focusing on getting sustainability into their products. So without this framework, I don't think we can do it. We've had a lot of interest, and this is a community that's going to grow and grow. And we've made it an organization as well, and a non-for-profit organization. Hopefully that'll extend more widely. But all the feedback we're getting is really good.
Okay, thank you for that, Scott. Now, we've got a bit of a Lewis Carroll theme today. For those of you who don't know, Lewis Carroll was the author of Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. And I don't know many quotes from Alice in Wonderland, but I do know this one, which is if you're telling a story, you should start at the beginning and go on until you get to the end and then stop. So that's some advice from Alice in Wonderland. Good advice, I think. But Scott, I didn't realize this, but in fact, Alice in Wonderland was a book about ESG. I didn't know this, but I'm reading this quote here, which I'm assuming is an actual quote from the book. Alice wandered through the looking glass into a boardroom where the White Rabbit was presenting on ESG. Sustainability is crucial, he said, checking his pocket watch, especially since I'm always running out of time. The Mad Hatter chimed in, and for social responsibility, I proposed tea parties for all with ethically sourced tea, of course. The Queen of Clark ever to so stern declared, and any corporation not complying with government standards may be met with a firm off with their heads. Alice sighed. This wonderful wonderland sure takes its ESG seriously, but I think they're missing the point. So, do you think we take ESG a little bit too seriously? Is the ESG community stuck in a land on the other side of the looking glass, do you think?
I think it's quite a nice way of looking at it, isn't it? I love the way that the like three characters disconnected doing their own siloed thing at the boardroom table. Folks are going to see on just what they're doing, but not looking at the overall impact. I think that's a kind of interesting point as well. I think I think if you went to the man in the street and you looked at some of the things that organizations are saying around about sustainability, there's a kind of complete disconnect from like the world today. So where we've got the cost of living crisis, where we've got the defense crises, where we're ramping up to perhaps future conflicts and things, at the same time to be looking at the temperature of the planet, that's a very interesting juxtaposition for most people. And it maybe does feel a little bit through the looking glass.
Okay, and I also want you to tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, about the Red Queen. So who's the Red Queen?
So you remember the Red Queen from the first book, because she, we got greenwashing. She invented red washing when she made the army go out and paint all the roses red. Yeah, lots of organizations. It's that sense of that hierarchical central person who's trying to bend the will to the world. Well, she sets Alice up in a race, and Alice starts running the race. And when she looks back, her competitors are just as far back behind her as she is. So no matter how far she runs, she can't outrun the competitors. And the Red Queen says, well, these are the rules of the race. You have to run as fast as you can to stay where you are. Yeah, and if you have to run faster than you can to get anywhere. Interestingly enough, that this term has been used to do with sex and evolution, and it's one of the Red Queen hypothesis has been shown to be linked with why we have sex. So sex allows us to evolve quicker. That's why we have it. And I think in business just now, a bit like the Red Queen game, anything we do and anything we try and do to get ahead or transform, all our competitors are doing it. So there's no advantage in evolutionary change. There's no advantage in even transition. The only advantage is going to be on transformation. And I think a lot of people don't understand transformation. And the reason we don't understand it is because we've used it badly in the industry before. So we might have taken paper processes, we might have taken physical things like banks had offices, and we moved them into online activities. But have we been radical enough in our thinking? And going back to the ESG and sustainability thing, I think where we're looking at digital transformation for sustainability, we need to be much more radical in what we're doing. We need to look at things like degrowth. We want to look at things like doing less. And we really need to evolve new ecosystems. And one of the things I'm suggesting is stop thinking supply chain, think ecosystem. And if you start thinking like that, you're going to be transforming. So the whole idea of the Red Queen effect is we need to get much faster at doing things, and we need to completely change the model, and that's a complete transformation. Or we're just going to be standing still.
Okay, well, curiouser and curiouser, as I think. So we got to keep running in order to stand still, unless we start thinking things through a lot better and start applying principles of digital transformation. And yeah, okay. So I think maybe it's time to move on. We now reach that part of the show when we're looking at some recent editorial coverage. And Isabella, you spotted a piece on the paradox of sustainability in the tech industry. Isabella, are you there?
Yes.
You are. So what's all this about then? The paradox of sustainability in the tech industry. Please, pray, enlighten us.
So this article, it's nothing new, but I think it's very critical as a reminder for all of us to rethink and to keep thinking. It discusses the paradox of sustainability in tech industry, particularly the large giant. And while we have a lot of technological advances, progress, it also creates a lot of carbon footprint and leads to a lot of environmental concerns nowadays, and more so. For example, it comes down to a basic understanding that I brought up in my book about 2 years ago. While everything seems virtual, intangible in the online world, we do leave our digital footprint throughout our online journey, social media, emails, searches, and just simply browsing. And we need to understand all these footprints are permanent, irreversible, and traceable, and are stored in a place called a data center, which is a major energy consumption center source. There's numbers showing the annual data center's energy consumption. It's same to the small countries' energy consumption combined, and the number is increasing. And tech companies, they are working on solutions and they try to fix this, but it does come with a lot of cost. But it doesn't mean sustainable tech it's not helpful and it's a losing game. Paradigm shift come at a huge cost and eventually turning into long-term profitability. And everyone has a role to play. So this article is a reminder for us to say that tech industry is not the only problem we're facing. This whole sustainability is becoming a global responsibility, and we need open source collaborations to bring different perspective. And also, I appreciate a mention at the end about education, because shaping the mind is the bottom line in shaping the future, and sustainability is about mind shifting.
Okay, thanks for that. So there's a couple of comments there. So first of all, Scott, I like your metaphor for the supply chain, calling it an ecosystem. I think that's good. And Isabella, I like this idea that it's a global thing. We need global cooperation. We need open source. We need transparency. We need people working together. I think I couldn't agree with you more. Before we go on to the next question, Scott and Manuel, have you got anything to add to that?
Well, a very interesting discussion already. I never thought of linking, through the looking glass, ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. So I promise I'll do my homework and come back to your show, Michael, with the more complete statement.
Just to follow up on what Isabella said, a large part of the Green PO taster sessions where we had people in, we've actually been doing things like looking at the carbon footprint of your website, so we can do that live with people, and then when we start having discussions around about photos, so think about all the photos you've got on your watch, or all the all the photos you've got in the Prime service, and one of the things that some organizations are starting to do is when they have a project and you want to do a new feature or you want to do something, is actually carbon accounting for it. So let's say you want to do a product, something that captures images. Well, what is that carbon footprint for images? What is the carbon cost? And then when you start taking those elements in, is something we're doing in the Green PO, is you start getting different ratings and different priorities. And it could be that your actual business case is uneconomic because of the amount of carbon you're going to produce, that then is going to have your risk compliance people coming along and saying, we're not going to make our 2030 targets, because of this unlimited growth you've got. So I would imagine things like Amazon and their unlimited photo policies and things should be looked at, right, just as much as whether or not the vans are using diesel or electric. Yeah.
And maybe to add to the conversation, and Scott, I like when you mentioned the need for sustainability in the processes and we connect them together. Wanted to mention that at AKFI we actually issued a white paper on digital transformation and the processes to come into it, and we want to put the sustainability in front. So typical for industries, we talk about we talk about market requirement documents, and we created a framework for SMRDs, sustainable market requirement documents, and sustainable product requirement documents. So S has to come in front of anything we're doing.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, we need to move on. And Manuel, you spotted an article. The latest dirty word in corporate America is ESG. So is ESG a swear word then or something? So what's all this about?
Well, I won't go that far to call it a swear word, but it's definitely, it had been a word that was very fashionable a few, weeks, months ago, and suddenly it fall out of fashion. But I want to reassure actually your audience that doesn't mean that sustainability is out of fashion. And sustainability is solid, and one of the reasons sustainability is solid is very difficult for politicians, people that debate ESG, to even spell it. So we are on a solid ground with sustainability. I want to reassure you about that. But yes, we're moving on from one acronym to another, and that has happened many times. I shall just mention for comparison, artificial intelligence went in fad about 1980s, 1990s, out of fad in the 2000, back into becoming very fashionable today. So acronyms come and go, but we're moving on sustainability.
Okay, so they used to say that, I don't know if this is true, but they say that a lot of the words that we consider to be swear words were in common usage about 1,000 years ago. They called them Anglo-Saxon words. They were words that the Anglo-Saxons used. So when the Normans invaded England, they became swear words. And something I've found out recently is that trousers used to be a swear word. If you use the word trousers, everyone, you said trousers. So maybe ESG is going to become an Anglo-Saxon word, and we're going to replace it with much more respectable sustainability instead. What do you think?
Well, maybe.
I was going to say I've never understood why anyone would want to put the word social into anything that they want Americans to invest in. they can't even do healthcare.
Okay, well, I know you said before you're not a fan of the S bit of ESG.
I think it triggers people. Yeah.
Right. Scott, I know you wanted to talk about the recent news about how last year was the hottest year ever. And I think you feel this ties in with sort of digital transformation. Can you?
Yeah. I think it can, and I think it comes back to being science-led. Yeah. So when I started my journey from digital transformation, one of the first things I did was studied online with Michael Mann's climate change things, and part of that you understand the mechanisms. So you understand the the effect of global warming on the El Nino, La Nina.
Michael Mann's a good bloke, I think.
Yeah. But you understand the mechanisms. So interesting enough, was in Mexico City at Christmas, and everyone's talking locally around about the desertification of Mexico City. So it's getting drier and drier. There's less water. My mother-in-law told me the reservoir's got no water in it, and these are kind of tangible things that are coming from the science. So the science is there. The science exists. Everything about this year being the hottest year was predicted and predictable. And yet when I see it reported on the news, it's like shock. It's like, oh my goodness, how did we get to this point? And the science is very well known. And I think in terms of transformations, we're going to have to look at things like the impacts of heat, the impacts of water access, the impacts of more conflict around about the heat. We understand the science. I think organizations can understand this very well. And all of our transformation plans, especially if they're over 10 years, need to start building this thing in and taking it seriously. So at the moment, I can create some digital transformation plans and have nothing in it around about how this would affect temperature, nothing in it about the resilience around about storms, fires, and other consequences. So we're going to have to put more resilience in. There's whole industries that, like insurance, where I've worked. They've got more and more work in insurance around about digitizing it, but are they doing more and more work around about the fact that their insurance model might break down? Already, large populations of Florida can't get insurance. So how do we think about these things? And then knowing these things, how do we build, as Isabella said, how do we build less carbon into our digital transformations? How do we have websites that take less data? How do we communicate in ways that that actually just create less carbon? Because the carbon and the carbon science and everything I learned with Michael Mann, it's all predictable. It's ironically, I heard someone on the news the other day saying something like that gravity was a theory, and climate change is a theory, and neither of them are proven. Okay, but it's predictable. You don't think you need to prove a theory to see the trend. So I think, and we need to see these reflected in the transformation plans.
Well, Scott, I hope we'll be around when the proof comes, right? Because
the proof's here. The proof's here.
Exactly. The environment doesn't necessarily live for us. The planet doesn't live for humans. We live
exactly.
We live here because the planet accepts us.
Yeah.
We do foolish things. We'll be out.
But it's not foolish things. It's just we're just doing things, and some of those things need rethought. But nobody's holding digital transformations to account at all.
Well, digital transformation is both the problem and the solution. So I think, as Isabella mentioned, it's really a great time to consider both sides of the coin. In economics, nothing is without unintended consequences. So,
yes, I completely understand that, and some of the things that are going to help us with resilience are going to come from new digital tools and new digital ways of thinking, and whether that's about crops and management and things.
Exactly.
But we are heading into a period that's just as predictable as this year will be the hottest. We're heading into a period where food security isn't going to be there. And I don't think anyone's gearing up anywhere around about the implications of food security.
Okay, so the news headline might say, "Oh, shock horror! Last year was the hottest year ever." You might as well say, "Shock horror! The sun rose this morning," or 2 + 2 = 4. It's or the lights came on this morning when someone pressed the button. It's one of those things that you just expect to happen. I just wanted to say something about that. I was looking at a video the other day. I'm going to call it up if you just bear with me. I won't play the video, but Sabine Hossenfelder, she was presenting a narrative which I've heard quite a lot lately. A runaway greenhouse effect is very unlikely. Now, I've heard a lot of people, esteemed scientists, argue that it's important we don't exaggerate the implications of climate change. But you know what? I've been thinking about that, and I don't actually agree with them. I mean, I don't think it's all doom and gloom with climate change, because I think there's some amazing technologies out there, renewable revolution, the great advances in sustainability. But I don't think we should understate the worst case. The worst case, it's not comparable to the meteorite that wiped out the dinosaurs or anything like that. But I think that in two respects, people underestimate how serious it could be. And you alluded to that just now, Scott, when you talked about problems with reservoirs in Mexico City, a city, Manuel, which I think you know very well. It's all very well in the north, Britain, for example, Germany, when Sabine lives, I think she's from Germany, where we have a very mild climate to say, oh, well, it's not so bad. But for the hotter parts of the world, I think climate change is a huge issue. And I'm thinking in particular here of Africa. I'm of the view that the second half of this century is going to be the period when Africa becomes an economic powerhouse. There's all sorts of reasons why I think that, which I won't go into now, because that's not what this show's about. But I think climate change poses a threat to that. So it's all very well looking at, oh, it's not so bad, but I think you should compare what might not happen as a result of climate change. In the case of Africa, it could make the difference between becoming an economic powerhouse and continued poverty. And then there's a second reason why I think that climate change is not something to understate. And that is to do with political polarization. And what I see is ever more extremism in politics. And I certainly see parallels today with some of the ideology knocking around with the 1930s. And you don't have to look far for a reason for this polarization. It's partly to do with the internet and the groupthink and group polarizations and echo chambers. That's part of the factor. But I think it's also because economic growth has been poor, wage growth has been poor, especially in the developed world, and also because of increased inequality. And it seems to me that climate change could exacerbate all of those things. So I think it's a mistake if we try to understate the dangers of climate change. Anyhow, I just wanted to say one other thing, and I like your opinions on this. The IMF recently said AI will affect almost 40% of jobs around the world, replacing some and complementing others. It said we need a careful balance of policies to tap its potential. Now, AI, I think, is becoming a very, very important part of digital transformation. But I think, as the scandal with Fujitsu has shown, if we don't apply proper governance to technology, the implications can be quite serious. So do you think what are your thoughts about ESG in the context of AI? And in particular, I think governance. I think that there are social implications of AI, good and bad. There are environmental implications, good and bad. But do we just not need a lot more governance? Any thoughts?
So we are looking at really the G part in the ESG. However, I would propose a slightly different view, a slightly different perspective. We should actually add the economics, the profitability. It should be doubly ESG, And what I'm saying that is because without really looking through the economic lens at the AI, looking through the economic lens at the transformation, at the digitalization, we are actually removing the whole raison d'etre for our societies. Our societies are equally economics as there are social constructs, there are political constructs. So together, so to add the economics part would be extremely important. Now, if you look through the economic lens, we should look at the profit and loss. That's the simplest way to look. And when the economy is based on GDP growth, when the economy is based on introducing tools, AI being, the most formidable tool we have so far. When we introduce that, if we forget about the S part, the social part, and we don't carry the people along, we have the history to tell us what's going to happen. One was called the Commune of Paris, and I'll stop there. 1930s are many lessons of history when you forget about the S and the economics and the relationship between the two.
Okay, thank you for that. Isabella, Scott, have you anything to add on the issue of AI and ESG?
Would you like to go, Isabella?
Oh, I guess I'll just add on the human element of AI and ESG and all these topics and challenges we're facing today. I think the training and education of the literacy of today's digital age is very critical to for us to tackle all these challenges. First of all, we need to understand what we're getting into, what we're facing, and then we can develop solutions together with the correct, cohesive mindset, so we don't stay in our own perspective and trying to work in our own silos and our own perspective. And think that's one of the most critical thing I see across industry. Everyone talks about it.
Yeah, I think it's a tool. And like all tools we've had, whether it's anything it's going to move the human race forward. It's going to move us forward in our development. It's going to make the risks riskier. It's going to make the benefits more beneficial. I was in Africa last year, and talking to a cab driver and showing them AI and saying that you've now got access to all the information you could possibly want to do anything. And that's never been available to a cab driver in Kampala before. Yeah, and it's not just the access to information, but it's also the structure and the steps to do things. So we've got a huge potential to do some great things. The economic and social aspects, as Manuel says, are very worrying for me. And part of the reason is it'll be very easy to spin up new ways of working that have got less people in them. The impact of that will be the investment and money flow will go that way. That's how capitalism works. And there'll be a lot of people displaced, which will get you back to your 1930s scenario. Yeah. And displaced people who don't have a future and don't have hope will start pointing at the elites, will start pointing at the systems, will start pointing at the, even the darling Elon Musk, will start getting pointed at. Because if people can't get a sense of belonging in their planet and their environment, they're quite happy to blow it all up. Yeah. Already we've seen, with the escalation of conflicts and things, and that will only get worse if if consumerism breaks down, if globalization tends to go back a bit, and we've also got the challenges of the poly crisis. In London recently, I bumped into the astronomer royal. I forget his name again, Martin something. And he said if we can get past 2050, we might have a good future as a human race. I think AI has maybe moved that forward to about 2045. Yeah.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
Martin Rees. That's Martin Rees. Yeah.
I think that from the way I see it is, I think there's an analogy here with the story of King Canute. For people who don't know, King Canute was an English king around about 950 AD, something like that. And the story
Was
goes,
that closely nearly a swear word?
yeah, quite. And he it's spelled C-N-U-T, I think. As the king courtiers said, "Oh, my king, you're so powerful, you could command the tide to stop." So he had his throne put on the beach, and he stood on the beach, and he commanded the tide to stop, and it couldn't stop. And I don't think we can stop technology any more than it could stop the tide. I don't think we can stop AI any more than it could stop the tide. But we have to play it right. And I see a parallel with if a car's in a skid. If a car's in a skid, what you don't do is fight the skid. You go with the skid, and then you that's the only way you can deal with it. Or if you fall into a river where the current's very, very strong, if you swim like crazy against the current, you're just going to exhaust yourself and you'll probably drown. And I think that we have to embrace AI. We have to go with it, but we have to do it in a clever and in a savvy way, which I think is why ESG really comes into its own, actually. I think this anti-responsible business, this anti-trying to see the bigger picture, is more dangerous now than ever before in the history of human race. Forget about climate change. I think climate change is serious, but I think that technology poses an existential threat to the human race, and it can only be dealt with by being very switched on and savvy and thinking about it very, very carefully and having objective discussion, in my view.
Can I ask a question? And it's just for the group, and if you want to come in, Michael. I'm kind of concerned that politics just now and all the major leaders, none of them are digital natives. Maybe Sunak, but certainly, Biden, Trump, Erdogan, none of them have kind of been brought up, closer to that technology. Do we need a younger generation of people to help us with this poly crisis?
I would have said yes. I would have said that without, there is a saying, and I can say this because I'm older, so I'm kind of criticizing my own generation. But there is a saying that the Max Planck, the physicist, said progress occurs one funeral at a time, and I do think we need younger people to move technologies along. We do have younger leaders, don't we, in some of the Baltic countries. She's stepped down now, hasn't she? But the Prime Minister of New Zealand was quite young. I don't know who her replacement is. And indeed, President Trudeau of Canada famously was able to explain what quantum computing is. I can't imagine David Cameron or Joe Biden or Donald Trump explaining what quantum computing is. But what do you think, Isabella? You have the advantage that you were a lot younger than us. Do you think our global leaders should be your generation, or do you think we need people of the generation of Scott, Manuel, and myself?
I agree with both of you. I think we do need to look into the next generations and leverage their perspective. I think it's a different time now. We're shifting from industrial revolution now to this artificial intelligence. I call it post-artificial intelligence age already. We're already heavily immersed in this digital world. So it's a totally different mechanic, the way to work, the way to think, and look at the younger generation, how they're just hands-on and many things that we need to take course on. So there's just so many signs for us to be aware and to rethink how to move forward.
Okay. All right. Look, time is disappearing, and we should be finishing the show now, and we've still got a lot to cover. So do you mind if we push on? And if I have a very quick conversation with you, Isabella, we're going to have to make it a quick conversation, though. And then immediately after that, I'll have a quick chat with Manuel. But Isabella, I want to ask you, who bears the ethical responsibility of the environment for ESG consequences of technological advancements? So it builds upon what we've just been talking. Is it solely on the shoulders of developers, or do consumers and policy makers also share a burden, do you think?
Yeah, I can see this very clearly at the beginning. A fall very strongly on the technical parties, developers, engineers, and I can also see a great shift in recent years towards a shared responsibility model because of the growing awareness of potential. Well, everything we've talked about, climate change, social change, and social media manipulation, and all these digital side effects. It broadened the horizon and also the consequences of our technology choices. Also, the investors and consumers, they request to take responsible approach, and they're also influencing the behaviors of the companies in the tech sector. Academia, media, they played a role in critical analysis, and also the responsibility isn't always equal, but I do see this shift in recognizing this interconnectedness of the system. It's very crucial, and everyone plays a role in determining the good of a society and how to minimize the harm.
Thank you for that. And very quickly, could a shift in consciousness fostered by technology or other means fundamentally change our relationship with the environment and lead to a more sustainable future? So is technology going to change us in a more positive way, do you think?
It's the consciousness question, right? I got a little cut off, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Could a shift in
Okay.
consciousness fostered by
Yes.
technology or other means fundamentally change our relationship with the environment?
Yes, the quick answer is yes, although I cannot predict exactly the future. But there are a few points I believe in that a shift toward a more environmentally conscious perspective could promote a deeper understanding of our impact on the planet and also create empathy for all of us to support a sustainable practices. And also this shift can challenge the existing value of how we consume and also how we focus on our short-term gains instead of prioritizing the long-term gains. And also this shared awareness will motivate all of us, and that could push for more inspiring movements and policy change for a more sustainable future.
Okay, thank you for that. And what might a sustainable technology movement look like, do you think? A sustainable technology movement driven by ethical principles and community engagement. What will that look like?
Digital Thinker, it's a sustainable movement for the betterment of humanity. And I'll take us as example to showcase some key features and among many others. And this is just a glimpse of what a sustainable movement could look like. We believe in the extraordinary potential of the human mind, and we recognize a growing disconnection between humanity and innovation, and that leads to ethical discourse, environmental impact, and health-related issues. So we focus on our primary target users. They are the ones into the cross-disciplinary area of responsible tech, digital well-being, and sustainability. And we want to redefine progress and value, move beyond the metrics of economic growth, and prioritize social well-being and other metrics. Also promoting the resource sharing and circular economy. One of our platform, it's a promoter for open source and collaborative decision-making process that encourage all of us to participate and to practice on the impact of how technology is affecting our society.
Okay, thanks for that, Isabella. I mean, I am of the view that there is a possibility that technology could create a kind of abundance, probably, notwithstanding the challenges of climate change. I think there are reasons to think that is the case. And I think it's very important that we play it right and that we mustn't lose the reason for this. The reason for all of this is we want to create a better world for everybody. And we mustn't lose sight of that, I think. Anyway, so thank you for your thoughts on there. Manuel, I'd like to just welcome you back for a short while and ask you a little bit more about digital transformation and ESG. Manuel, you talk about the 3 pillars of digital transformation. What are they?
Well, the first pillar is always recognized is technology, and we had a lot of discussions today around AI and technologies and data centers and clouds, and just to name 10% of what technology implies. But really, technology is through the people and for the people, because without people, really, technology will not even evolve. It lives based on our revolution. Yes, there are part of our human evolution, actually. There are tools, as you say. And so the second pillar is really the stakeholders, the humans. And I should add, the stakeholders also include the environment now. And then is the question of how, is the question of making technology in the relations with the environment, the relation with the society, make it actionable. And that's where we look at the business models. We look at the economics and the business models, and how they come together. So to summarize, technology is like a three-legged stool. It has definitely the part that we see very clearly is the technology. That's where the investments go. This is what people want. But in that process, as Isabella and Scott have mentioned, we sort of push the social element, the reskilling of the people, the education of the people, the system thinking that we need to introduce in our universities, for instance. And I promise for the next show to focus on that. And really the economics and the business part, which is the core of the society. The society is not made only of technology. It's not only made of environment. It's not only made of people. It's made of the integration of all these factors, the interplay that you, Michael, so much you mentioned. And yes, this interplay breaks down from time to time. 1930, it's a critical example that politicians should look into, young or old. I don't think they really study history, really, if I look at what's happening in the world today. And that's not age related.
No, I agree. I actually think history is underrated in how important a topic it is. I think it's you can learn so much from history, from the mistakes of the past, and you can understand how we are where we are through studying history. I think one slight problem with that is the history I learned when I was at school was so biased. And as I've got older, I've had to sort of relearn a lot of the history that I was taught, because I found out that a lot of it was quite misleading.
Well, yes, without going in details, my history classes were called political history. I lived in Romania during the communist period in the country, so I'm born there actually and lived there. So they put political in front of history. There's so much in front of economics. So political was the underlining, or the factor, that the lens that we have to look at everything.
Interesting. Okay. So just to summarize, the three pillars of digital transformation then are people and business transformation and digital. Is that right? Have I got
Absolutely. Digitalization, all these digital variants of the world.
All right. Okay. And how does all this relate to sustainability then?
Well, sustainability, if we look at it, it's another three pillars, right? Is the planet, the people, and the profits. And if you look at how digital transformation supports this, you see the connection. We actually connected it into an acronym called EDGES, right? Which combines economics, governance, combines ESG with digital transformation.
Okay, thank you for that, Manuel. Now, we've not had that many questions today, which is probably a good thing, actually, because we've gone way over time as it is. Lisa Rabones is very curious about your new platform. I think she was talking to you, Scott, but I think that's probably a question for you to answer over the chat rather than in the show, maybe. I don't know. You've already discussed it to an extent. Yeah, so we don't seem to have that many questions today. So I think what we could do is we could just finish off with one question which we can all discuss. So, and it ties in with what we've talked about so far. So I think it will round up the discussion quite well. Really, it kind of provides a summary, which is: does the rapid pace of technological change make it harder to address long-term sustainability challenges? I wouldn't say, can you give me a yes or no answer, but it'd be nice if you could give me a short answer. Scott, would you like to have a go at that one first? Does the rapid pace of technological change make it harder to address long-term sustainability challenges?
Yes, we're too connected. We're also caught up in a dopamine cycle. As little chimps in the savannah or early hominids, we were very focused on what would give us some reward and what would give us some action. So we developed this dopamine mechanism. This is why people will, circle through endless videos that get them angry, that exacerbate the differences, and anything to do with thinking about the climate changes into your terror management theory. So technology is not working well with our very set brains and how we work.
Okay. Manuel, same question for you. Does the rapid pace of technological change make it harder to address long-term sustainability challenges?
I think the answer is in the question, actually, because if you look at the time elements, right, technology and in general, the sense of the society moving from fast cars to fast trains to airplanes to supersonic jets and so on, points us to very short terms. If you look at through the economic lens, companies have to report in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year the results. And then we have we have long terms. Environmental changes, not weather changes, are defined like cycles of 30 years. History goes in cycles of periods, if we look at it, in hundreds of years. So we have to adjust our clocks when we talk about technology. Short story, the technology clock seems to run fast, but part of it, as Scott already mentioned, is the way it's pushed in front of us in the media. We spend too much money trying to, keep people attached to the screen. And we get this sense of movement, fast movement, and everything has to move immediately, right?
Absolutely. Too right. Isabella, you're a bit younger. Well, I think probably quite a bit younger, actually.
I think you've just broken your ESG policy there.
It's just a number. It's okay.
Well, that's what I keep telling people. So does the rapid pace of technological change make it harder to address long-term sustainability challenges? I'm interested in your perspective on this as a slightly younger person.
Within the current system, policy, mechanism, the work culture, yes, it affects it hugely. It wouldn't be a problem if we slowly transition into a different dynamic. I see the hope of that, and we've been talking about it all day today.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabella. This is one thing that does occur to me. Our species, we've been around, 150, 200,000 years. And the amount of change that we've gone through over the last 2 or 3 generations has been phenomenal. And then the change that we've gone through over the last few decades is even faster than that. And when we evolved, hunter-gatherers on the plains of Africa, we weren't evolved for a lifestyle involving smartphones and AI and electricity. And I do wonder whether technology is changing faster than our cognitive abilities can keep up. But anyway, thank you.
We've got a chip. We've got a chip for that coming.
Thank you very much, everybody, for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've all enjoyed today's show, listening wherever you are in the world. And we're not going to be here next week, but the following week we will be, where we'll be talking about B Corps and the economy for the common good. So please join us then, and thank you, and goodbye.